Right. Okay. I'm going to support the motion. I share some of Councilmember Wozniak's concerns. I wonder, or I hope one of us will remember to be charitable and flexible when a not-so-popular cause comes before us to ask for a waiver of fees. I think we're setting a precedent here, and I have no grievance at all with Code Pink. I hope you're successful, and I hope ultimately that the Marines decide to leave. But we're not talking about the righteousness or of your cause or the illegality of the Iraq War. We're talking here about a policy, and I think we need to be careful if we're setting a precedent here for the next, as I say, not so popular group that comes along. I do have one practical question. What's the parking space for?
I'm going to enthusiastically support this. Obviously, I'm a co-sponsor of it. I may be the only person up here who's an ex-Marine. And
you'll be drummed out of the Corps, man.
Well, I'm already drummed out. I got drummed out many years ago when I took a stand against the Vietnam War. But I'd already served my time in hell, as they say, by then. But I won't belabor the point, but we're confronted with a military apparatus that has billions of dollars at its disposal to bombard our young people and the nation with propaganda. The few, the proud, The history of the Marines isn't so proud as one might think it is. You look at their history in Nicaragua over the first half of this century. You look at, what we've done in Vietnam and other places. This war, this is not Okinawa. This is not Iwo Jima we're involved in here. We're involved in a naked act of aggression. And as one of the Marine Corps heroes of Marine Corps lore once put it, a guy named Smedley Butler, who rose to the rank of Major General, he talked about the Marines as the president's own gangsters. And unfortunately, too often that's the role that they play. Being lied to, it's part of the scenario. I can certainly remember when I was in training in the early 60s that all the pop-up targets were Asians. I imagine they've changed their targets these days to fit the current racial profile. But they don't, they train killers. I mean, that's the role of the Marine Corps, to train you to kill. And nobody should be naive about that. So if we can provide a space and an opportunity for ordinary people to express themselves against this kind of barbarity, then we ought to be doing that. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. I'll just say I'm supporting this because I believe it's where the values of the Berkeley citizens are at. There was a time when the Marines were defending the country, and that's in World War II, perhaps. I wasn't alive then, but all I've known is death and destruction and killing and maiming for my whole life, and I'm tired of it. So I thank you all who go out there every noon to save some of our humanity that's left, because we've got such horrible karma. Thank you for trying to help us stop any more death and destruction. And this is different than abortion, because we're not saying anybody can't go in there. We're just trying to give them the other side of the story, so to speak. So I'm not going to vote to give anybody like the opponents a permit, because it doesn't reflect the values of our community at all. And we've passed resolution after resolution. It's time we put our money where our mouth is, as far as I'm concerned. So I'll be voting for the motion.
Thanks. Thank you, Donna.
Sitting here listening to that 90-year-old woman say what she said, that really was inspirational to me. And I realized what a hypocrite I am, because during the Vietnam War, people in Berkeley, and us included with our two sons, found a psychiatrist that would say that the kids were all crazy so that we could get them out of the war. And it's just the same thing now when you think about it. It really is. It's just continuing, and it's very sad to say times haven't changed. They're just like they were then. So it's really disappointing. But the Marines ought to have better sense than to come here. And since they did, why, I've decided, and the Hummer's the other thing that made me change my mind.
Well, I mean, it's appropriate that we're discussing this at this time of the year, as we are coming off of a whole series of celebrations of Martin Luther King's birthday. And Martin Luther King was inspirational to many of us, including me, to get involved in the civil rights movement, but he was also inspirational to get us involved in the peace movement. He took a very strong role standing up for poor people's issues and for peace issues and opposing the Vietnam War. So I think it's very appropriate that we take action in support of peace activism. At the same time, I think it's really important for us to keep in mind that as we are supporting peace activists, that we encourage those parts of the peace movement that do not villainize people who are forced by economic circumstances to become a part of the military, and people who are veterans and people who are in the military are not our enemy. And many parts of the modern peace movement understand this, and I think we really need to keep that front and center. Veterans and people in the military are not the enemy. It's the stupidity of certain people in Washington, D.C. that is causing these illegal activities using our military. So I think that's important. Finally, one of my reasons for voting for this is I believe that as this was carefully crafted by our legal staff and the city manager and whoever else, I think this gives us the maximum protection for the disabled community to actually have access in downtown. Because if we forced all of these protesters to be blocking the sidewalk, people in wheelchairs and disabled and frail and elderly people would have a really hard time getting by. So I think the way this is put together is if it's legal to do it this way, is a really good way to protect those frail elderly and to protect the disabled people and to support the free speech rights of the protesters. So I think it's very clever, and I commend whoever worked on it to get it where it is. Thank you.
I've been working with Code Pink, and I believe in their cause, and I believe that what they're doing is the right thing. They're bringing maximum pressure to bear on the whole question of the Marines. And being in Berkeley, they don't belong here. They shouldn't have come here, and they should leave. So I think we're pretty clear. But I do think there's some interesting points that have been raised, and I think that we shouldn't just dismiss them. I think the point that Councilmember Wozniak made was a very important issue. Free speech is free speech for everybody. It's not just for the righteous. It's for everyone. And so we need to recognize that, and we need to be in a situation where we don't trample on other people's rights to congregate and have free speech. So I'm going to vote for it, and I pick up on Councilmember Capitelli's note that if you do it here, you've got to be prepared to do it elsewhere. And I would assume that there will be issues that will come back to us, and I'll look at them at the merits of the time, but I'm inclined to, if I do it here, I'm inclined to help other people in the future. So with that, please call the roll.